What's up guys, Suris here. So I was perusing through Facebook and I came across a bunch of posts by a single individual. Now, these are posts that I've actually been seeing for a while now, and I've been waiting on an opportunity to accumulate enough of these to make a video. These are all from the same person, and his name and image are going to be censored. I also got NotJah Witness to voice over his comments and give a little commentary of his own because I figured the insanity needed to be shared. Alright intro, let my suffering begin. Well, now that the formalities are out of the way, hey NotJah, why don't you go ahead and read the first comment?
I have heard it said, God is evil. This creates a paradox for the atheist. One cannot have evil without good. This means we need something to compare the evil to. Since atheists claim morality is subjective, they have nothing to compare God to. By even claiming God is evil is to suggest the God, whom you don't believe in, is real, which creates another paradox. This post should end all debates. Hashtag simple logic. That's some very simple logic indeed.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. The logic here is incredibly simple. So simple to where I would actually just call it simplistic. This post really is all over the place. First of all, when he says that God is evil, this creates a paradox for the atheist, that's actually incorrect. The logical problem of evil is a paradox for the Christian, not us. I'm perfectly fine with the idea that evil doesn't exist without good because you can't really measure one without the other. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't mean that the good has to spring from a god. He then goes on to say that atheists claim morality is subjective, but that's actually incorrect. There are some atheists that claim morality is subjective, but there are others who will claim an objective moral standpoint as well, Sam Harris and Richard Carrier being two of them. I myself am a moral anti-realist, which is a subset of subjectivism, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I yield to that morality is subjective in all situations. I'm perfectly comfortable with there being objective moral standards set by society. That doesn't bother me at all. He then makes the huge mistake of saying that whenever we try to talk about God, we're basically talking about him as if he were real, which creates a paradox. Except it doesn't, because last I checked, hypotheticals don't create paradoxes unless the hypothetical is paradoxical in nature. I'm willing to grant that your God is real for the sole purpose of showing that it's a logical contradiction. All in all, I think it's safe to say that this particular post is naive at best. But the best is yet to come. Hey NotJah, what about the next one?
Evidence for God. I'm going to post a video which will allow you to feel the power of God. Now, if you get mad or start name-calling, then that means you are feeling the power of God, and Satan don't want that. I know that is what will happen, because the Bible tells me so. Right.
So the clip in question is actually about a 27-second long video that's essentially a Christian concert. I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to feel power from God through this. I also love the disingenuous catch-22 he tries to put readers in when it comes to this particular post by saying that if you feel mad, you're feeling the power of God. But if I feel good while watching this, you would also say that I feel the power of God. So in either scenario, I guess I'm feeling the power of God. Where is your margin for error? Where's the null hypothesis?
I am kind of curious to know how they think that they can harness the power of God within a video likely taken by their cell phone. I heard this on the radio today. When Jesus rose from the dead, women were the first ones to witness his resurrection. In the first century, women were not held in high regard. People never took the message of women seriously. So if one is going to create a work of fiction, to create a movement, why choose women to propel that movement? Most people would reject words from women. Lee Strobel, former atheist. There is evidence one cannot argue about. Is this supposed to be that because they decided to use women to propel the movement, that means that Jesus definitely rose from the dead? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't really get it either. Not to mention the disciples and Paul were all male, and they were the main people spreading the faith. They also definitely had a horse in the race in believing whether or not the resurrection was true. I don't know, it just seems like a really disingenuous statement to make. I also love how he qualifies Lee Strobel as a former atheist, and then says that there is evidence one cannot argue about. But I'm fairly certain that historians have been arguing about the resurrection of Christ for a very long time, and will continue to do so. As long as there are people who have something to lose with the resurrection being untrue, then there's definitely room for argument to be had.
Evidence of God. I was having a difficult financial time here lately. I prayed, God, I have been faithful and given to charity. Now please help me. Today I walk out of my house and see cash laying on the ground. Exactly $13 in small bills. Now those who study numerology will be quick to point out 13 is a bad luck number, but for me, it is evidence of God. I mean, money doesn't just magically appear. To the rational mind, this doesn't make sense, but to the believer, it makes perfect sense. Malachi chapter 3. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, and I will throw out so much blessing, you will not be able to contain it. Today, God did just that. Because money does not grow on trees, but it does rain down from heaven. What they're saying here is that some other poor schmuck has lost $13, and instead of when this person found the $13, instead of being a decent person and like handing it in to the local authorities or maybe the unit section area, the lobby or whatever, there's a lost and found, just ask around if somebody's lost some money, see if they can name what they've lost. I mean, there are definite ways you could do this, especially if it's, just outside their house or whatever. Just seems a bit of a dick move if you ask me. And then you say you're in a tough financial time and all God does to help you when you pray is give you $13. It's enough for a bus trip and a coffee if you're lucky. Like, what the hell does that mean? That's a slap in the face, isn't it? He's God. If he was going to help you, why didn't he give you $1 million? Pay off your debt.
Yeah, I do have to agree, and I would like to add on that statements like this really just show how small the Christian God actually is. He has infinite cosmic powers, and yet he gives you $13. Also, if he's a quad-omni God, wouldn't it follow that he had some hand in you getting into your financial bind in the first place? If everything happens according to God's will and God's plan, then, well, it would only follow that this was kinda his fault. So, much like with hell, God's trying to get you out of the bind he put you in. Kind of an asshole God, if you ask me.
If two guys who loved each other got married but no AIDS was present among either of them, then they make love and become infected with HIV. Then the both of them get into a car crash, go to the ER, and a nurse working on them has a cut, gets infected. Then she, in turn, infects her husband, who is sleeping around, and infects another girl. Then that girl infects 10 other people, and one of the 10 is a blood donor who infects millions. Then would homosexuality be good? God has a plan. As long as we stick to that plan, society will work, and we can stop the spread of AIDS. What the actual fuck?
Oh boy, I have a lot to say on this. You first, NotJah.
That's just not how shit works.
Yeah, that's definitely not how this stuff works. So, for those who aren't aware, AIDS is not spontaneously generated by the gay. You have to get it from another infected individual. What's funny is that in the 96 comments, this guy constantly cites a CDC article, and he uses it to claim that apparently semen mixing with anal fluid causes AIDS to be spontaneously generated. I actually challenged him on this, and then I read the article that he sent me and told him that it doesn't say what he thinks it says. Having already done the research for the Steven Anderson video where he said much the same thing, it really takes no effort to debunk this claim. The increased chance to get AIDS from having homosexual sex has nothing to do with the fact that it's homosexual sex. It has everything to do with the fact that the body has less protective mechanisms in the anus. It also has to do with the fact that generally protection isn't used as much for anal sex because our sexual education here in the United States is absolute horse crap. Some people are never taught that a condom is both useful for stopping STDs and pregnancies, and if you don't want either of them, then using a condom is a good way to prevent that. But it seems like people like this guy are either completely uneducated on the topic or simply don't care. I also love this dystopian 28 days later type picture he presents here, where AIDS spreads like a zombie virus. Hollywood's already done this story with other viruses, but the trick is to stop living in the fantasy world when you leave the theater.
Before reading this one, I just want to point out this is probably one of the most disgusting things so far that I've read. I heard this on the radio today from a homosexual activist. There is a new acronym we must consider. LBGTQP. What does the P stand for, you ask? Pedophilia. This is something that people cannot control, so they need to be included in all sorts of activities with children. This doesn't surprise me because it uses the same logic that the homosexual movement has been using for years. No one was born that way. And even if they were, that does not justify sin. If it did, all sorts of sin would be justified, such as rape, murder, and even pedophilia. The complete backwards nature of this is what gets me. I hope they're not part of the Catholic Church, by the way. That would be rather ironic.
Yeah, I would have to agree that this individual is definitely spouting some pretty horrific shit. But I'll be willing to grant him that pedophilia might be a sexual desire that somebody can't control. But even if I were to grant that, it doesn't then justify their ability to harm children. If somebody is so broken and twisted that they legitimately see children who can't give consent as sexually desirable and then pursue those desires, they are a moral monster. There really is no in-between here. And to equate members of the LGBTQ with pedophiles is absolutely horrific, because essentially what you're doing is you're equating people who love their consensual partners, much like heterosexual couples do, with people who are actually predators. There's actually going to be a live discussion on my channel here in a few weeks talking about this very issue. So let me make it clear for this individual and anybody who might be listening. Do not equate people who have consensual partners of the same or opposite gender with people who are predatory against children. These things are not the same. And to claim they are doesn't just make you disingenuous, it makes you an absolute asshole. So don't make an asshole out of yourself.
Take a good look at this photo. Both Christian scientists and non-believing scientists will agree this rock was made by sediment, which occurs as floodwaters allow dirt to settle and compact. Some have said this is because of little floods over the region. This rock was found at 2,500 feet above sea level, and there are rocks all over this region just the same. This means that water covered at least 2,500 feet above sea level. Looks like a worldwide flood to me. This is so fucking stupid. Like, it's just because they're at that height above sea level. I mean, I'm willing to bet there are still, like, creeks and valleys, like, oh my god.
Yeah, I think the conversation here pretty much boils down to is the rock got wet, that doesn't mean worldwide flood. The only people who try to point to Noah's flood anymore are people who don't understand how floods work. Do yourself a favor, call Noah's flood a metaphor. Then you can keep being a Christian without spouting nonsense. But if you decide that you're going to try to maintain that the flood actually happened in the way it's described by the Bible, then I'm sorry. I think you've given us ample reason to point and laugh. Not to mention, he's basically asking us to take his word for it that this particular rock, without any citation or location, happens to be 2,500 feet above sea level. Without any way of verifying it, we basically just have to take his word, and based on the other comments that I found from this person, I don't think that his word is worth a whole lot.
Evidence of God. In the book of Revelation, speaks of blood-red moons, darkened sun, and a few other things, including trumpets. I believe we are living in the end times. Because there are blood-red moons and trumpets?
I guess because some people thought that they heard trumpets, and we happen to have blood moons, which we've always had, and the sun has a variable amount of light that it gives the Earth at any given time because there's a whole lot of other factors in play, like cloud coverage. And you can tell that the article he's citing is serious business because it comes from alienUFOsightings.com. Chalk one up for the genetic fallacy. I think your source might be questionable.
I was listening to the radio this afternoon and they was talking about evolution, how Bigfoot is one step below humans. This got me to thinking, if someone shot Bigfoot, this would be equal to murder as all other animals. If people truly believe in evolution, then they should give up eating meat, because that is murder. To say it is not murder is to put humans on a higher level than animals, which would mean evolution is false. Simple logic proves everything. I did not know that we had scientifically classified Bigfoot, let alone had him placed in our evolutionary process anywhere there. So I'd definitely like to see the sources on that one.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you and I both know that his sources are going to be something along the lines of alienUFOsightings.com. Not to mention, I would say that evolutionists have less to worry about the Bigfoot claim than Mormons do, as some Mormons believe that Bigfoot is, Cain. But with that said, he's not actually taking this to its logical conclusion. All humans are related to all other eukaryotes, so I guess we shouldn't eat vegetables then. And I guess this also means that elephants and pine trees must definitely be able to mate. Statements like this are on a whole nother level of stupid. I would put them categorically below statements like, if humans evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Statements like this show not only that this person has no idea what they're talking about, but that they don't want to know what they're talking about. Two other things before we go. One, I want to know what radio he's listening to, because there's all kinds of crazy stuff that seems to come from that. And secondly, we have an entire universe where energy can only be transferred via consumption. For you to consume, you will have to kill something at some point. Or the something that you are eating will have had to either kill or benefit from the death of something else. It's unfortunately inescapable. It's what happens when you have an entire universe where, again, the only way to gain energy is from consumption. Nothing is free, and that's a fact of life. With that said, everyone, I'd like to personally thank NotJah Witness for helping out with this video. It definitely helped a whole lot to have him voice over these. I was happy to share my pain. If you haven't already, you should definitely check out his channel, and if I could recommend something, I would definitely recommend his Dr. Gaiman series. He takes this young Earth creationist and gives him grades on the things that he's saying, and they're absolutely hilarious. I'll be watching his sub count. If you don't subscribe to him, I will know. And before we move into the Patreon slides, everyone, as always, insert end of video tagline here.